All right, we are back here for the SendouQ Season 10 finals that are happening here on IPL Splatoon. My name is Rissa, joined by the lovely Sapph, and we are still waiting, as if you might have heard before we headed to this very short break, that we are waiting to go into round 4. We're waiting for some sets to finish up in round 3, and we were kind of sitting here behind the scenes looking at the bracket and just kind of going over some of the interesting sets that have been happening not on stream, so we kind of wanted to go ahead and take a look at those.
Yeah, from what it is looking like, so in the round 3 realm, if you will, right now, so we have Bet versus Blanks at the moment. Bet is up 2-0 against Blanks currently in round 3, and we are waiting for the Hypernova and Sun Eater set to finish, which, by the way, Sun Eater is seeded 12th in this competition. They went 3-2 with PXG right at the beginning of the day. They took PXG to a 3-2 and unfortunately losing to 2 against PXG. They beat Blanks at 3-0, and the success has now been decided between Hypernova and Sun Eater. So Hypernova and Sun Eater went to a game 5, and Sun Eater won of 3-2 over Hypernova. So there is some really interesting storytelling happening with Sun Eater, and I'm wondering, who is Sun Eater? Because according to the Ludi division, Sun Eater is in the Division 1 realm, as Hypernova, PXG, and the Blanks of the world are in the Division X positions. So Sun Eater is doing some crazy work today, finding success over Hypernova and over Blanks. That currently, with standings, puts them in the number 2 spot in Group A to be moving on to Top Cut, which is fascinating.
Crazy. Yeah. Like the first set of the day, you're up against the first seed as the 12th seed, and you take them immediately to a game 5. Like that's crazy work. I feel like, you know, that's the set where you're really warming up, getting used to the tournament, getting ready to see how you're going to be playing that day, and you're not only taking on the first seed, but you're taking them all the way to game 5. That's crazy. That's crazy work.
That's pretty crazy. And so perhaps maybe a warm down against Bet going on into the 4th round for Sun Eater. Would really like to see a little more from Sun Eater and what's going on over there. Maybe we can get some eyes on one of the next sets with Sun Eater if we're really lucky. But for now, we're going to be taking Hypernova under our wing after that 3-2 upset. And Hypernova is going to be playing against Duck Motif, who we got to see earlier in the day against Blanks. Duck Motif, unfortunately, losing in game 5 from 3-2 against Blanks earlier. But now going to be getting a chance to play against Hypernova. These are your 5th and 9th seeds in the tournament today. And one thing I want to point out, which we got to talk about a lot on the pre-show last night, on Hypernova's roster, the newest additions are Prosper and Fling King. Fling King being a mainstay with Hypernova. Prosper, I think, just was maybe playing with Hypernova in SendouQ, but Prosper will be playing with a different team come the Ludi stuff things. I couldn't think of another word anyway. And I think Prosper's also included in the Healbook team, which is another Division X team that's playing in Ludi. But I don't think Prosper is playing with Healbook in Ludi. But either way, that is to say, Prosper has a wide net of companions to be playing the game with. So a lot of experience coming out from Hypernova, going against Duck Motif, which both of these squads, by the way, also played in the NA League and also played against each other a couple times in the NA League. So finding familiar faces once again in this season 10 of SendouQ. Which actually, Rissa, we're finally seeing a little bit of a change of opening. We're going to be going to Undertow Spillway for the first time today. And I don't know what it is with people having Crab Lake Capital as second.
I know.
There's some sort of recipe there that is beyond my little pea brain to understand.
I know. I feel like when I'm active and playing in the scene, playing scrims, playing SendouQ, you know, you really there's like, it's like a map of the month almost. Like there's a specific group of maps that are constantly played. So this must be one of those Crab Lake Capital that we'll see in game 2, since we're just seeing it so consistently throughout this tournament.
Yeah, it seems like Crab Lake Capital has been one of the fixtures in the map list, if you will, so far today. But Duck Motif, what we got to see earlier, they had their player Red Shell running a Stamper a lot of the time, until we kind of got to nearing the end of the set with blanks. Did Red Shell switch off and go back to tried and true on the Octobrush? Wondering if we're going to see a similar story here on Undertow Spillway to try to open up with the Stamper. And we haven't gotten to see any gameplay on the stream from Hypernova today. But from what I was seeing in the bracket, Hypernova has been kind of having a tough day today, Rissa. Their only victory so far was over Bet in the very first round in 3-1, finding PXG in round 2 and not really finding much success there. And then round 3, thinking they were going up against the 12th seed, actually got taken to a game 5 and ultimately lost the set. So Hypernova is looking at 1-2 currently in the pool stage, and hopefully looking to find another victory against Duck Motif. Duck Motif also having a bit of a hard day, also finding themselves in a 1-2 scenario as well. So very similar scoring happening between them, but different teams being played through the day.
Yeah, it's something to say when you're Hypernova here and you think you're like, I've been in this situation so many times in tournaments where you think you're up against, a low seed, but like it's one of those things where you can't take a breather. You really got to keep your guard up because, like we were saying, Sun Eater taking Hypernova all the way to game 5 and then winning that game 5. You go into the match with a specific mentality and thinking, okay, this should be easy, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is not easy. We have to turn our brains up to 1,000,000 thinking power and really be on it. So Hypernova headed into this next match against Duck Motif. Surely these two teams have been around for a little while within the Splatoon hemisphere and have played each other a multitude of times. So that's always a fun part of the storyline when you get to see teams that are familiar with each other, because it's fun seeing teams who haven't played each other, seeing how they approach each other, but it's also fun to see teams that are familiar with each other and they already know what the other team is cooking up and know how to approach it. So they're going to have, each team is going to have a specific game plan headed into this match.
And one thing to note too is that some of the folks from Hypernova have found themselves in the top 4 previously. So I believe it was in season 5, you had the pickup team and also LCS 2025 champion team, My Little Henlo, playing in the season 5 of SendouQ finals, and they found themselves in 4th place. But needless to say, very familiar with how the format works, very familiar with the competition that's playing, because it was also in season 5 that you had a myriad of pickup teams playing, but it was the pickup teams were made of like the FT Wins of the world, the Voilactis of the world. Like it was made of a lot of top level players in different configurations of pickup against My Little Henlo. So you have a couple folks from My Little Henlo playing with Hypernova today, Henlo being one of them, obviously. So hopefully going to be finding some success against Duck Motif here. And one thing I found interesting looking at the bracket is that Hypernova beat Bet at the very beginning of the day 3-1, but then Bet beat Duck Motif in round 2 3-1.
Interesting. So
it's and Hypernova is seeded a little bit higher. They're seeded number 5 in the tournament. Duck Motif is seeded number 9. But Bet is not much different in caliber as they are seeded at number 8. So different things cooking there between Duck Motif and Bet in that second round. And then Duck Motif finding PXG later on in the day and losing 3-0. But finally, now with Hypernova and Duck Motif getting their hands clean and moving on into a fresh start for round 4 here on Undertow Spillway. Fling King is going to not be opting for the Flingza roller, as you might have guessed. Incorrect. We are going to be playing with a Dynamo roller, and I feel that of all the rollers to try to find success here against a Snipe Rider, Dynamo is probably the one that is going to struggle a little bit unless Fling King can also play at range, much like the Snipe Rider can.
Oh, I'm so excited to see a Dynamo right now. I love the Dynamo ever since the update has happened with it. So getting to actually see it played in comp is going to be really cool to see. But regardless of that, I was looking too on the other side for Hypernova, having that Splatling. Same team. Sorry, excuse me. Having that Splatling, I think, is really interesting too. We haven't seen that played yet today here on the stream. Prosper, of course, on that Splatling. So getting to see how that will play out against the other team that has a Pencil, a Mini, a Slosher, and a Dually Squelcher, I think will be really cool.
Yeah, and Hypernova so far is going to be toppling the lead here very briefly. And you can see that Duck Motif is going to try and see what they can do with the amount of space that they have. They are playing very patiently here as Duck Motif Hypernova is really collapsing in space-wise onto their spawning area here. The Stamp is going to try to come out and make some headway, but Synapse is already there behind, going to take Red Shell and Kai around the same time and going to try to back up and still maintain a lot of the space on the back end here. There's a lot to work with for Fling King and Prosper to feel very safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Synapse able to use that wall to guard the zone. Prosper and Fling King are able to play safely behind that. And if you look on the bottom left screen of the screen too, Synapse and Fling King are really making sure that they're playing together. That type of team play is going to be super, super crucial against a team, especially like Duck Motif, that really likes to play aggressively. So just making sure you're making team plays like that, like we saw Hypernova set up, is going to be really crucial. But in a turn of events here, Duck Motif now has gotten control of the zone. It's going to be their turn now to make sure that they're doing those team plays, getting positions to guard the zone. And there's so many different avenues that you have to be watching since this is a double zoned map. So it's really interesting at this high level of Splatoon to see where the teams set up, where they decide they want to set up areas to guard the map, where they want to set up areas to push. We're getting to see that from perspectives on both sides here.
Yeah, and it seems to me that Hypernova has the keys to success currently, as the Duck Motif has kind of been sitting in the same position for most of this match here, just very much shoved over to the right-hand side and not really finding much success in other areas. And maybe that's due to the Wave Breaker just really holding it down on the center stage. Maybe it's due to Prosper not overextending themselves and playing in the back end very strongly on the glass up there. But Red Shell is able to break through, which Rissa, Red Shell is in fact using a mini Splatling. I did see that correctly. Really wanting to flex a different muscle here for the side of Duck Motif, and I'm a little concerned that the composition is maybe just not what they were prepared for.
Yeah, how interesting is it that Red Shell, the Octobrush player that we all know him to play, is not playing it, but someone else on the other team that he's playing against is playing Octobrush. That's, you know, you look at the screen, you think Octobrush, and you automatically think that's Red Shell, but nope, that is, their name is Change It right now here, playing the Octobrush instead. Interesting.
Very interesting indeed. And due to this type of matchup, Hypernova is going to find success in the first round here. And one thing I really noticed, and just right up front, Rissa, that we talked about, is that there was I didn't really see Duck Motif in very much of the map at all. I didn't really see them leave that corner area and find much success other than that corner. It seemed like that was the only position they could really effectively hold. And and it was kind of challenging to try to even consider flanking over to the right-hand side of the stage. So I'm wondering if that is going to be the ticket for success to Hypernova, to just be like, hey, this is the only thing that we will allow you to do, and this is what you have to work with, so deal with it. But perhaps, once again, Crab Leg Capital being into our next matchup for map number 2, perhaps, once again, having more availability to shoot through the floor is going to be helpful for Duck Motif, which I believe that we went to Crab Leg with Duck Motif in the very first round against Blanks. And Blanks completely toppled game number 2. I don't even think that Duck Motif got very many points on the board of note because it was Blanks all the way down. So trying to reassess here against Hypernova. How do we do this differently to where we don't completely get toppled like we did against Blanks?
I know, and especially if you're against Prosper playing Splatling, Fling King on the Dynamo. Say that 5 times fast. No, I'm just kidding.
Fling.
But yeah, you're against a Dynamo and a Splatling on Crab Leg. They're going to be able to get in safe positions to utilize those weapons and utilize the range that those weapons have. I'm very curious, like you were saying, how Duck Motif is going to approach that. I mean, the one thing I could think of is that Red Shell can go over to that Zipcaster that we previously saw him do so well on and just try and get behind that Dynamo and that Splatling, try and use that special to scramble them a little bit more. I don't know. I'm curious too, just in the back of my mind, why Red Shell went to Mini in that first match as well, but that's something we can talk about later. Let's go ahead and head into this game too. Red Shell sticking on that Mini. Interesting. I'm so curious. I need to know what's going on in Duck Motif's mind.
Yeah, there is something to the conversation that we are totally missing with why we're maintaining the Mini versus using the Octobrush again. Because I agree with you. I feel like Zipcaster from Red Shell is what we saw here last time we got to watch Duck Motif on Crab Leg Capital. So the difference here against Hypernova is really interesting. And I'm wondering if where Mini finds its success against a team like Hypernova, especially when Hypernova has been so good at expanding their reach with utilizing the weapons at their disposal. But Duck Motif is going to be the first ones to be holding zone down here. Synapse is finding themselves almost between a rock and a hard place on the left-hand side, able to narrowly escape there and actually provide enough support to take the zone just ever so briefly from Duck Motif, but it is still Duck Motif's game.
Duck Motif still in control of the zone. Change It here is using that Zipcaster to do what we were talking about, what Red Shell does, use that to scramble out the other team. But of course, Duck Motif, they know that game. They were able to single out that Zipcaster and put a stop to that. So looking at this, you know, I'm wondering maybe if Red Shell is going to try and use the hammer a lot to throw at those more stationary weapons. That's going to be one of the things in the back of my head that I'm going to be watching here to see if Duck Motif plays around that a little bit more. But regardless of that, heading into this, Duck Motif down past that 30 remaining point marker, and it is now Hypernova's turn to try and get into the zone. They are able to take down 2 members of Duck Motif, able to solidify pushing around Synapse's 52 gal there, push forward, get the zone, and now push up past that.
Yeah, and Kaden finding themselves called out between Fling King and Synapse there, unfortunately, unable to do much damage. But Hypernova find themselves with only Prosper left alive, and with a point sensor out to just try to locate the members of Duck Motif as quick as possible. But Prosper is going to have to leave the center zone because there is nobody there to help with any follow-up. So Duck Motif now feeling quite confident in their position at the 21 mark with still plenty of time left in the game, but still, where are the folks of Hypernova trying to go here? Synapse is going to try to take the fight to Kaden. Kaden finding success, looking in to see if they can take a fight with Prosper, and Prosper almost being down in the process, if you will. But Hypernova is still trying to look for an entry point. This is a very big scramble if you're Hypernova.
Yeah, Hypernova has to do everything they possibly can to just get in and paint the zone. We see Synapse there just push forward, tries to use that killer whale, tries to use the main weapon there that they have to paint the zone, was really close to capping the zone and at least getting it capped to keep the match going for Hypernova, but didn't quite get there in time. So Duck Motif taking this game 2 against Hypernova.
Yeah, really was looking at Kaden this match. Kaden really had some impressive gameplay and kept on taking really key positions away from Hypernova to utilize, more specifically the right-hand side of the map where the grate meets that first corner. Caden consistently was taking that position away from Hypernova, was not allowing Prosper to really push forward and get any high ground in the middle section, which I think is super important, especially with Prosper using that heavy splatling. So not finding too much success in that regard. So Duck Motif was able to take game number 2, a very different story from what we saw with Duck Motif and Blanks in round 1 just a little while ago, where Blanks completely like 100-0 took Duck Motif out in that game. So Humpback Pump Track, this is the first time we're seeing Humpback Pump Track today, and let me tell you, Fling King on that Dynamo, gonna be a really good pick here if they stick with that.
That is definitely going to be really good. That's going to be able to paint so much ground, be able to just stand up on those ledges of the map and paint over the zone, paint over the ledges, get anyone sharking under those ledges. So if you are on the other side on Duck Motif, that's going to be one of the things you're really watching to make sure you're not going to be around when those dynamo swings are happening on this map. I mean, that dynamo swing is going to be able to cover so much ground. But that is one of those weapons where if you're able to catch it off guard, it's a little bit more slow moving. Maybe if you figure out how to approach that a little bit, you can, counter it. But we'll see heading into this.
I'm wondering if our Splatling users are going to make a change here. Splatling is not nearly as effective on Humpback Pump Track as it was on Undertow and on Crab Leg. So I'm curious if that is a weapon pool that's just going to be switched out entirely for something like this, where the topography is just very strange. It's almost like we're at a skate park or something. But it's as soon as I say it, it would seem to me that I'm going to eat my words, because Prosper and Red Shell don't care what I have to say, and they're going to keep playing Splatlings regardless. But Kaisa, Rissa, interestingly enough, is going to be changing off of the Charger and using the Rapid Blaster as their long range of choice, which on something like this, I think could be very, very strong here, especially if Duck Motif is really quick to pick up on the chip damage.
Yeah, imagine if you're that Splatling, that Dynamo, and you're just trying to slowly, hold the space that you have. You're a little bit more of a slower weapon, and then you're just getting poked by a Rapid Blaster. That could be really, really annoying if you are up against that. But as we're seeing this game unfold here, Hypernova still in control of the zone, and they are making sure they're watching where Duck Motif is dropping down. Duck Motif, of course, dropping down on this right side, but only has 2 members up. It's just Mr. Boss alive. Mr. Boss gets called out as well with Caden. So now we're seeing change it here. Use the Zipcaster, push forward, get another pick onto Duck Motif. Another pick at that. Gonna go ahead and get Caden again. And this is looking like a really dominating start here for Hypernova. It might even be a complete KO.
I love when the Zipcaster is utilized as like a slingshot. You just literally fling your body at the opponent and just hope that the explosion that comes afterwards is going to be enough to take them out. And surely enough, Hypernova in dominant fashion takes the third match quite easily, which we thought that a lot of the Zipcaster and Octobrush gameplay was going to be coming out from Red Shell with Duck Motif. We really thought we were going to be lacking in that. No. Don't worry. Hypernova's got us covered. And especially on that Humpback Pump Track game, Zipcaster was really the MVP special of all of that.
Yeah, totally. Able to not only take down the push, but then use the Zipcaster and continue to just completely scramble what Duck Motif was trying to do in their spawn. And Duck Motif knew it was like one of those make or break moments where you have to get your specials together. You have to go to the zone. You have to at least cap it. And then when there's a Zipcaster just coming at you in your face, that just totally shuts it down. Great timing for usage of the Zipcaster as well.
Moving on down the line, Inkblot Art Academy is coming up next. We got to see this one a little bit earlier, I think in like round 2 of what was going down with us. So we're back to school again. Spring quarter is starting very shortly here. And I'm wondering in my mind's eye, especially with what Hypernova has been doing, it seems to me that this Zipcaster from Change It is quite a problem. Like this needs to be shut down right away. Especially with how many surfaces that are at their disposal with something like Inkblot Art Academy. You really got to be shutting that down as soon as you can. And especially with Duck Motif utilizing different specials here, I'm hoping that the stamp coming out from Red Shell could be a very good projectile weapon to try to combat something like that. And I'm also wondering, now that Kai has switched back to the Snipe Rider, there's going to be a lot more paint coverage as well coming out from Hypernova, which, especially in something like this, and when you find yourself in the match point seat, you want to be having as best coverage as you possibly can. And one thing, Rissa, I totally meant to talk about this earlier before we started. Hypernova is also running a composition with Dynamo and the Heavy Splatling, which I don't think would have been possible with past renditions of updates until this one.
Totally. This is like a very new thing within the meta that we're not typically used to seeing. So getting to see it now, I think, is really cool, and we're getting to see it in action. And maybe this will be part of the meta shift and the ever-changing meta of Splatoon. So as this match starts, it was initially Hypernova who was in control. Duck Motif now in control of the zone, though.
Yeah, Duck Motif finally finding some footing here with multiple members of Hypernova going down. Change It is going to be shut down. That is the second time in a row that their Zipcaster has been immediately shut down, and it's like they were in my head, Rissa. They were listening that Zipcaster has got to go, or perhaps maybe I'm projecting what they were talking about. Either way, really good success rate here from Duck Motif with keeping the Zipcaster out of the gameplay. And Mr. Boss, there is the ledge camper themselves. Mr. Boss is able to take not one, but two while going down in the process. Once again, Change It is finding very minimal value in this matchup here, and to where Duck Motif has now 30 points ahead.
I'm wondering if Mr. Boss switched from the Tri-Slosher over to the regular Slosher to add a little bit more aggression to counteract Red Shell not playing one of the more aggressive weapons. So seems like so far for them within this match, it is working. But if Hypernova adapts to that little bit of a playstyle change, they might be able to counter that. However, for Duck Motif, as we see, they are in the lead. It seems like it is working for them initially. And like you said, that Slosher able to just camp under the ledges where you're trying to drop out of your spawn can be really, really deadly, especially with the support of their team.
Well, again, it seems like Change It has been trying to do the exact same thing, but again, I am seeing Change It getting taken out of the process more than I'm seeing what they are trying to cook with here, because again, like, trying to camp the ledges and immediately called out from camping the ledges. But you can see they are on the back end behind Duck Motif currently, which toppled the offense right away. You could see Kaden had nowhere else to run, so being taken down on the middle of the zone here. Duck Motif now finding themselves in their spawning area, looking to try to find an exit route. Kaden is going to try to opt to left enter on the left-hand side there. Prosper is going to be calling them out. The Tri-Strikes are there to try to follow up. And almost enough ink to get on the zone here to take it out of possession. It's been in neutral for quite some time, but Hypernova is going to find success very briefly in continuing to make sure they don't have a penalty. But when you get taken out and have two members go and disconnect Rissa way past the mark here, that is looking good for Duck Motif.
That is looking very good for Duck Motif. They were doing a great job starting to dominate in this match in particular, but not only dominating in the match, now they're going to...
I don't know if Rissa disappeared for just a brief moment. Oh, no, there she is. Okay. Oh.
No, keep going. My net is being sus.
Okay. I thought she was gone forever, but in fact, she's still here. We still have her. We're in single digits now here for Duck Motif. A very unfortunate loss for Hypernova to try to push the set into a game 5. Duck Motif wasted no time to utilize that disconnect, pushing themselves into now the tied seat once again, 2-2. Hoping to take another round off of Hypernova into this game 5 here. Hopefully no more disconnects moving into this game 5. Unfortunately, though, according to rules, way long after the timing of when we could have reset the game. So Hagglefish Market is where we will see the set come to an end.
Yeah, at least for Hypernova, even though they had that disconnect, at least they were up in the set and they know, okay, we still have game 5 heading into this, so we're not completely out. That would just the mental of knowing that you have a disconnect and then that is the match that makes you lose the set in particular could be really, really discouraging. But knowing that they at least have this game 5 going into, I think, you know, they at least can take a breath and know that heading into this. And in that set, that last game as well, Duck Motif, even though they did win that and there was a disconnect on Hypernova's side, Duck Motif really seemed like they were still on their game before that, and they were really just figuring out what they needed to do against Hypernova. So Duck Motif were doing really, really good before that disconnect as well against Hypernova in particular.
Right, and hoping to find success over on Hagglefish Market. You have another very similar linear map, but you have very significant flanks here. Hypernova especially very keen on the flanks, especially on Inkblot Art Academy. You had Kaden looking in both directions constantly to see where the entrance point was, so I think Hagglefish Market is going to hold a very similar story. Hoping though that Hypernova is able to fix their net and just make sure that everybody can stay in the game for the entire time, because like you said, it's a really unfortunate loss to come from a disconnect, but at the same time it's like you can't be mad at things that are out of your control when stuff like that happens. Easier said than done, of course, but you kind of just have to roll with the punches at that point, and so that very much handed Duck Motif the win for that last matchup. But hopefully Hagglefish Market holds a little bit of a different story. But regardless of the interesting, to go back to the comp change that Duck Motif has been working with Red Shell staying off the Octobrush and using Mini more, even with a very significant weapon change such as that, Duck Motif has still been very strong in holding their own against Hypernova and against Blanks as well when we saw them earlier in the tournament. So all it takes is a lot of practice, and if you want to talk about a lot of practice, if you look in the dictionary, Duck Motif is right there. So right, exactly. I mean, I just think about their run in the NA League, like just seeing them every single week for the pre tournament leading up to the main one. Duck Motif was like very intentional about making sure that they had enough points to move on into the next round. And so talk about spending hours and hours and hours of time playing the game and just honing the craft and trying to transfer that over into the SendouQ finals. No strangers to playing the long game.
Yeah, they are no strangers to the grind. Absolutely. I mean, you said it perfectly. They're just used to that. They know, okay, we held it together this long. We're in a game 5. Don't let, even if you're the team against the team who got the disconnect, sometimes you can really, there's a mental of like, I don't know. There's a certain mental where you have to still keep it together yourself if the other team disconnects, because it's just like, I don't know how to explain what I'm thinking, but you're like, okay, are they going to DC again? You know, I don't want to go into this, you know, thinking that they're going to DC and it's like an easy win. I don't know. There's so many different levels of the mental heading into this from both teams that you really have to be on. And like you said, they're just used to this type of long game, and especially against Hypernova, they're another team. Like I was saying before this started, they're both within the Splatoon hemisphere. They're both used to playing each other, playing the long game, playing all these tournaments, so they are familiar with this game. And headed into this game 5, let's go ahead and take a look at these comps and see what we're working with.
I like that Prosper changed their name to Morning Star. I really appreciate that. A very good weapon of choice. If this game were to be in the medieval realm, what a Morning Star would be a great weapon of choice. So right at the start here, Duck Motif very briefly holding the zone. Hypernova very briefly holding the zone. Back to Duck Motif's court for just another moment. We have a lot of moments to be giving to these brief zone holds here, and Duck Motif is now going to be the ones to continue the hold as we keep moving forward into this Hagglefish game. It's a 2-2 set, so whoever wins this one is going to be the successor of round 4 as we go into round number 5. But so far, so good for Duck Motif. Fingers crossed for no disconnects from Hypernova. Okay, and additionally, it would seem that Rissa's net is also disconnecting from the realm that we're currently in, and so it's me out here telling you again, Duck Motif. When now with Cooler out, here comes Caden and completely juiced up, looking at the left-hand side here, not finding anybody, but they're going to take the fight to them in the center court area. That's Synapse going down in the trade. Change It still having a little bit of damage locked in before they could try to find success with a different pick. So Hypernova very much on the back foot here, and hoping to maintain their morale as they move on into the 5th round, because they've had a very devastating loss 3-2 in their last set. And it's looking to be a very similar story here against Duck Motif, who is seated just a couple ticks lower than they are, and finding no ground to stand on, with Duck Motif completing the circuit with 3-2. So looking at if you were thinking about the bracket again, that is Hypernova going down to the 8th seed, which is Bet previously, and now going down in the same Game 5 fashion to Duck Motif in the 4th round. So Hypernova, I would imagine morale is a little bit tough at the moment here with moving on into the 5th round. But if you're Duck Motif, oh man, it's guns blazing. Like, you are hyped as heck moving on into the 5th round here. To go against your next opponent, and also looking pretty good standing wise here. However, even regarding the standings of what we know right now, Sun Eater is still number 2 in Group A to be moving on into the top 4. Bet is right on their coattails, because in round number 4, Sun Eater took Bet down 3-0. So Sun Eater has done that with Blanks today. They've done that with Bet today. And they did that very narrowly against Hypernova in round 3. So your 12th seed is sweeping through the group stage right now in Group A, and looking to now fight Duck Motif next in the round 5 spot. So Duck Motif having super duper success against Hypernova 3-2. Sun Eater also beat Hypernova 3-2 just previously. So now it is Duck Motif's turn to try to see if they can push Sun Eater into the back seat. However, Sun Eater is finding great success so far in this group stage, and Rissa has now returned from the Shadow Realm to join me and talk about this. Rissa,